Hi, I wanted to show you a little device I've created for Max for Life. It's called Deepmind controller, and it basically is a Deepmind controller which extends Deepmind control possibilities over your DAW or your external gear as well. All you have to do in order to this to work is put this little device on your MIDI track, which you want to route to your external gear or to your VST, like this Repro here I got on this track. And also you have to put your Deepmind USB setting in the NRPN or the MIDI if you are using MIDI to communicate with your Ableton. And that's basically it. Just open it, and here it is how it looks. Here I got some layout I've created for the Repro, but let's bring the fresh one. So now let's bring the camera. Oh, yeah. So what we got in here is sliders and the menus that you got on the Deepmind, and all of those are, as you can see here with the pitch mode on the first oscillator, all of these sliders are controlled by the Deepmind. And the reason I did that is because some of the functions on the Deepmind, like buttons and menus, are not really easy to, or even possible to map natively. So with the NRPN, they does, but at the same time, most of the synths and VSTs cannot really understand those kind of communicates. So this device will translate those into the standard MIDI CC, and at the same time we got some improvements over the basic functionalities of the Deepmind as a MIDI controller, like presets and more hidden or combo strokes that you can activate to map even more parameters at the same time. So if you hit here, show settings, and show labels here, you can set any of the sliders to desired MIDI CC here, and put the name of the slider, just in case you forget one day which slider does what. Also, all the menu settings got scaling, this red one, either the upscale or downscale value. For example, if you want to control the parameter that goes from, let's say, -10 to +10 with the transpose in the poly edit menu on the Deepmind, just set here to -10, here to +10, and then that knob will scale to those values. So if you hit -10 transpose on the Deepmind, you will get 0 CC message, and when you hit +10 on the Deepmind, you will have 127 CC. Also, some of those sliders works in common on exclusive mode. What it means, if the slider is in common mode, it works no matter what. So no matter which hidden function I will show you in a moment, the slider will work. If the slider is in exclusive mode, it will only work in that mode. And where are those modes actually. So on the Deepmind panel, we got buttons to engage oscillators and to mess up with the filter. And with when all those buttons are unlit, we are controlling only the highest row here, this one, unless the slider is in common mode, because in the common mode, as I said before, no matter what you do, you always control that slider. So this one, pitch mode here, here, and here. If you are using common mode, they all move at the same time. But if you use exclusive mode, it only works in that one mode. The first mode, when all buttons are lit, is the row here. When you hit the so, you will only control this row down there. If you hit the square, you will only work with this, and with the sync button, you will only work with this one. So those are basically 4 pages of those oscillator sliders to work. If you want, for example, control more oscillators at the same time, or other parameters of your synth, and you miss some more sliders, there are always some you can borrow here. You can engage all the modes at the same time to control multiple oscillators at the same time, for example. Or, as I said, if you put that in the common mode, no matter what I choose here, the top slider will always move. That's really convenient. If you want, for example, use only, let's say, 4 first in the exclusive mode to control different 4 aspects of your synth, and the last 3 to work always, no matter which of the pages here are chosen to work with. Same goes to the filter. Here we got a frequency. When we hit 2-pole, we got this second row. Of course, it's in common mode, so the top one moves as well. So let's put it in exclusive for a while. And now only this one moves. And the third one is when you hit the invert. As you can see here. And the last page is when you hit the boost on the Deepmind, and it's here. Each of those sliders can be assigned to different MIDI CC. So as you can see, there are plenty of commands and CCs you can put to control your gear. Also, as I said before, we got all the menus which are hidden in the menus of the Deepmind. And as you might know, there are some key combos that control those settings directly from the panel of the Deepmind. For example, if I hit and hold edit on the VCF and move LFO here, I can select the LFO that controls Deepmind's filter. But we can assign this little dial to anything we want. So you don't actually have to go into those menus to bring even more control over VST or external gear with that controller. What else? We got all the menus. I also mapped all the sequencer settings, so you can go to the sequencer edit, and when you change the values, you can on the sequencer steps from 1 to 32, you will have even more controllers here, and also the mode matrix is mapped. So let me show you. If I hit mode matrix on the first row, the depth here, depth is work here, second row, and so on. Those are also, you can also scale this to the lower values if you want to. Yeah, I think that's basically it, how to use it. Here you have some on the bottom here. Let me show you. Here you got some quick tips, how things works, how to save presets, how to load preset, and so on. You can put, as I said, labels over the sliders here. Let's say pitch, and here let's say, I don't know, fine. And now 1 and 2 cc, and now when I hide hide everything, I will get clear view of what parameters I got mapped to, you know, this is a little bit messy. So yeah, so I think that's all we have to know about it. Also remember to set MIDI from to at least Deepmind or all ins if you want to, and arm the track. My track is armed because I'm using push as a controller, and the push will choose a selected track and arm it automatically. Which is also convenient because if you have multiple instruments over your session, you will control only the one which is selected when you using the Deepmind as a controller. Yep, I think that's it. So let's bring a preset I've created for the Repro. I got all the parameters that I want to control here already mapped. Let me show you the settings. So we have some CCs chosen down there, and the first section works in exclusive mode, the oscillator section, because I want to control mode matrix when all buttons here are unlit. Then we control the sorry, not the sequencer, the mode matrix, and when the first button is lit, we control the first oscillator, like frequency, PVM, fine, octave, and the shapes. And when the second button is engaged, we control the second oscillator. Okay, so the basic idea here is to actually not use that panel. It's only to map things. Because if you are using Deepmind and you know which parameter which does, and you get used to it, you actually can just, you know, play with your VSTs, for example, like you play with a Deepmind. That's the basic idea I got there. The main difference for me between the VSTs and the hardware is that you cannot directly control VSTs that easy as you can do with the actual hardware. So here, this one here, if you got everything mapped the way you understand which slider do what, you can actually close the controller panel and just play with the hardware. And all the labels are, you know, labels does what you can expect to do when you actually play with the hardware synth. Also, because of all of these hidden keystrokes and menu functions, you got so many possibilities to map maybe any VST or hardware synth you want to control with it. So, what we have in here. Okay, so this is a Repro 1 monosynth with really clear layout. And before we get started and play and jam with the Repro, we have to map those knobs and switches to the controller. And in order to do that, we have to hit here. And as you can see, all those knobs are already mapped because they are lit red. Sorry. But just for the just to show you, I will quickly unmap all of this with double clicking. So the first one will be when I hit the first oscillator on the Deepmind. First knob will be frequency. So let's use a pitch mode to control this because frequency and pitch. Here we have pulse width, so maybe use the pulse width modulation from Deepmind. Here we have an octave, so maybe another pitch mode. And here is a tone mode, so maybe the fine tune as it next to the octave slider here. And here we got two shapes, we got 3 sliders left. On the bottom one we have 3 shapes, so let's use the first slider here and the third slider here. So the middle one does nothing. And the sync, I don't remember where I put the sync. Oh yeah, here on the 2-pole. Oh, I did not mention this. You can also map the buttons itself. So the buttons can act as a switches, the modes, and it does actually at the same time even if you map those buttons. And also you can set a MIDI CC to the button to control switchable functions with the button as well. So as we found on the 2-pole, we got oscillator sync, and oh, it's already mapped. Yeah. Okay, so now sync, shapes. Here, that little trim is fine tune, octave, pulse width, and the frequency. Same goes to the second oscillator, I believe. Frequency, pulse width. Oh, this is reversed, but that doesn't really matter. Here we got a fine tune and the octave, and 3 shapes here. If we turn off the oscillator control here, we got the amount of the mode envelope here. Here we got switches of the mode matrix here. Okay, so here we got a filter, a cutoff, resonance, envelope amount. Keyboard is on the keyboard slider of the Deepmind. On the LFO slider here on the VCF, we got mode LFO amount, as you might expect. On the envelope side, we got an amp envelope, VCF envelopes, and on the mode envelopes, we got a mixer here with the possible engage of the feedback. And what else? On the LFO section of the Deepmind, we got LFO rate, and then all the shapes with remaining 3 sliders. And in the menu, we can also bring the ARP sync, which will engage clock or rate sync of the LFO. What else? We also got envelope curves on the Deepmind. I use that to control rest of the settings. On the first page, which is a VCF, when I hit curves here, we got arpeggiator and sequencer settings. No, the first one is choose between the clock you are going to use to control those things here. Here we got the rhetoric, repeat, and drone. On the second page we got here, this one is common for every page, so the clock is common for each one. Here we got an arpeggiator controller, latch, and this one does nothing. And on the third page we got sequencer, play, rec, and sequencer, choose which sequence you want to use. And here we got a rest. You can put manually to the sequencer. Yeah, I think that's all. You can also map tweaks if you want to, some of them. I think I did not do this, but there are some interesting things like inverted phase of shapes of the LFOs. You can also reverse the envelope if you want to, and so on. I also got this pitch bend range mapped in the Deepmind pitch bend settings. I can go to the value represented on the screen. Yeah, and it's reflected here. I got -2 + 2, and on the screen of the Repro I got also -2 + 2. All the settings and MIDI mappings you can also check here on the MIDI table if you want to. It's really easy. Okay, so let's initialize this and check if it works. So for now, let's bring the oscillators down and bring only the first one up. Second one, noise, feedback. Works as expected, and things like you might actually not do when you normally use the VST, which is messing around with the synth parameters in the real time instead of just automate things, like for example playing with the filter. So it actually feels like a real synth if you forget for a while that this is just a VST on your screen. And I got the same thing done for the Repro 5 here. Sorry. Yeah. It's just different preset on the controller which are created. It's really similar layout, but some things are different. For example, on the tweaks page, we got those voice panning trims, and I set the mode matrix to control this because the mode matrix got 8 rows that goes from negative to positive, so it really reflects really well what's going on here. And to show you how it works, the depth here will control the panning of the first voice, second row, second voice, and so on. Let's initialize this. Okay, so it's all you need to know to bring this to work. On the second video, I will try to show you a little jam with Repro 1 and Repro 5 to show you how easy you can control VST synthesizer with this controller, really similarly to the way you normally play with the hardware synth.